Today on the table I have the Burst of Thunder, chambered in 380, Smith & Wesson 380 EZ, obviously chambered in 380. You will see a price split of $96, the Smith & Wesson being about $96 more than the Bursa. Weight, the Smith & Wesson is a lighter firearm. They're just about identical in length. Height, without the magazine in, the Bursa would be a shorter firearm. With the magazine in, the Bursa is slightly longer. Now this is a base plate on there, so you could probably switch this out for some sort of flush base plate, making it a shorter firearm. Width, they look pretty similar. The Bursa does seem to appear slightly fatter. I will put the specs in there. When you purchase the two firearms with the Bursa, you get a crappy case, range flag. I don't believe you get an extra magazine. I'm not seeing one. You do also get your lockdown key, which you can put in the side there and lock the firearm down so you don't need a trigger lock. With the Smith & Wesson, you get a cardboard box. You get an extra magazine. Pretty cool. And your gun lock. Mag release. I can't hit it on the Bursa, not from my normal shooting position. I gotta cock the firearm and press it that way. Smith & Wesson, very hittable. The slide, it's very easy to rack on the Smith & Wesson. The Bursa, it's much harder. Now if the hammer's already back, it's slightly easier, but it's still much harder than the Smith & Wesson. The ejection port's pretty small on the Bursa, so if you ever run into a malfunction, it's going to be much harder to clear than if you were to run into a malfunction on the Smith & Wesson. Nice big open port. The magazines themselves, the Smith & Wesson does have a little tab right here that'll help you load it. Your Bursa does not, but I do like the Bursa mag better. It just feels of a higher quality. Smith & Wesson comes off as really cheap. Now the Smith & Wesson you can order with a safety or without a safety, but they all do have the grip safety on them. They also have a loaded flag, but this does not have a magazine disconnect, which is pretty cool. I don't like that at all. Your Bursa, it doesn't have a loaded flag, which, whatever, who really cares, but it does have a magazine disconnect. Now the Bursa is a double single, so you can fire it with the hammer back, or you got a safety and a decocker right here. And then you can take it off safety, so you just have a hard trigger pull, which would be ideal to carry it. Now the Bursa does have a unique advantage over most semi-automatic firearms in the fact that the barrel is fixed. If you wanted to silence this, you would have to buy a silencer with a booster in it, otherwise it's just not going to function. The Bursa, because the barrel is fixed, you can make your own silencer for this, or use like an oil filter silencer or something to that effect, because the barrel doesn't need to move. When you start weighting down these locking barrels, it screws with the functionality of the firearm. You may have to either add weight to the slide or put a heavier spring in here, but that's not a big deal, because then you just have to pay for your $200 tax stamp, and you can then you can totally make your own silencer. This you're looking at probably like $1,000 to silence it, because you're gonna have to buy a silencer that's got a booster on it. It's gonna have to be for a 380, which whatever. You may have functionality problems even with a silencer with a booster on that you're gonna have to overcome. Then you're gonna have to buy your tax stamp. It's a lot of work. Trigger brake. 380 EZ. Brake's actually pretty clean. I'm surprised with that. Burst of Thunder. Single action mode. Damn it. I do get some movement in the front sight that is going to affect your accuracy. Double action mode. I also get movement in the front sight. I've heard a lot of people argue because this is a fixed barrel that it would be more accurate than a moving barrel, but that's ridiculous because your bullet's out of the firearm before the slide ever unlocks the barrel. Your Bersa does not have an accessory rail. Your Smith & Wesson EZ does. I would like to see an accessory rail, but if you were to put one on here, it would totally ruin the styling of this. So I'd rather just keep it exactly the way it is. I'd actually like one of these in chrome. Now, what would I pick out of these two firearms? The whole point of this video is two firearms against each other that are very easy to function. Because if your girl buys a gun, or if you buy a gun for whatever reason, you need an easy one, who knows, maybe your hands are weaker, you're older, or you just want something that's easy to use, or maybe you're getting your kid his first pistol. It's very important they can function at 100% by themselves. Yeah, it sounds like a great idea. I'll just load the mag for them, they can shoot, and then, I'll help them with it. But how long is that going to go on for? Having to be helped with a firearm, it's like having to have someone do your homework. It defeats the whole purpose and it makes you hate the firearm. Out of those two things, without a doubt, the Smith & Wesson is an easier firearm to use. Especially if you get the one without the safety, because then there's not an extra toggle on there. It's lighter. Ideally, it's supposed to be easier to break down, but I struggle with this one because you're supposed to flip this lever and then it comes off. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I struggle with it. Turns out the problem I was having was I was dry firing it and I was holding the grip safety. When you tear this apart, you cannot do either of them. Lock your slide to the rear, flip your takedown lever, eject your magazine, slide comes off. Far easier than the Bersa. Mag release, very easy to use. It's got the tab to help you load it. They both do have easy to use 3-dot sights. But now, for whatever reason, say you're not looking for a firearm that's just way easy to use. That's a tough call. I do like the advantages of a double single. I do not like the magazine disconnect. I hate how far forward the magazine release is because it's very hard to push. With the slide release, nice big fat button, very easy to push. And like I said, it's a double single, so you don't have to run a safety, plus you still get a very hard trigger pull. Say you get the EZ without the safety, that's pretty light. Plus the fact that this has a fixed barrel, so silencing this is doable. I mean, I just have to order a tax stamp, get issued a serial number, and I could make my own silencer. Not a big deal. Not a fan at all of this lockdown thing. I haven't heard of the Bersas having a problem. But like the Taurus, theirs just from recoil would work themselves in the lock position, taking the firearm down. Customers would come in. I actually figured out this problem by mistake because my uncle had bought a PT-111. He's like, hey, when I shoot this thing, sometimes it'll fire, sometimes it won't. Sometimes it'll fire and just go click, nothing will happen. Other times it'll fire and go off. Alright, so here's the lock position. And then you turn it all the way this way to unlock it and you'll feel like a little click. His was just slightly off of that. So it'll allow it to fire sometimes and sometimes it wouldn't. And there's like really no positive lockup. So just by normal use, you can engage the safety lock system.
The Smith & Wesson internal lock. This is a safety feature they started adding to the revolvers in the early 2000s. It is almost universally hated. The locks have been known to occasionally engage all by themselves under the force of recoil, which means the gun is completely locked up until the user can find their key and unlock it.
So, if I'm looking for the maximum easiest firearm to use, without a doubt, Smith & Wesson EZ, because this is an easy firearm to use. It really is. They really put a lot of thought in making it easy. Now, something I noticed with the Shield EZ that I'd like to bring up, when I hit the slide release, well, this is a slide stop, which I think is poorly designed. Because of how this firearm is designed, they should have put a ledge on there and made this a very easy to hit slide release. But anyway, just the skin of my thumb dragging on the slide is slowing down the slide. So I think these are going to be susceptible to getting dirty and having malfunctions. Obviously, I can't prove that or test that because I just don't have the resources. But I think when you get into higher round counts, if you don't keep this firearm clean, it is going to have issues with malfunctioning just because of how light they made this slide and how easy it is to stop it from going forward. I could definitely see carbon or dirt doing that. Another thing they should have probably changed is they should have probably wrote clip on here. Because since this is designed for novice shooters, and they're probably going to call this a clip, and people are probably going to yell at them for it, it'd be really nice if they just put clip on there. This way they could be like, no, it says clip right there. This particular item is a clip because it really don't matter what you call it. It's still the same purpose, but people don't like feeling dumb. Now for like a range toy or something I may want to silence in the future, the Bersa. You get more options. They'll probably be more accurate with the Smith & Wesson, but I still like double singles. Now I did a quick internet search looking for a threaded barrel for this and I was not able to find one, so that could be an issue that you might have to overcome. But still, finding a threaded barrel for this too is probably going to be an issue. But leave in the comments below which one you would pick and why. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.